What is stopping someone from being healthy inside and outside, but also mentally, emotionally, spiritually? If you ever meet someone who has like a great physique, but it can't be sustained without 4 hours in the gym, or very affluent, but they can't hold a relationship. I'm going to go ask the right questions, find what can impact you from getting better. Then I layer all of these things together, and it usually points to one major problem. And then we start there. People ask, like, what do you do? I'm like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, I'll put you back together, but we're going to look at the hard stuff. Like, why do I have these behaviors? Oh, they came from your dad. And then you go to talk to your dad and you're like, oh, they came from your mom. Well, passing the blame seems like that's where it comes from. Do you want to live your life passing the blame around? Well, no. You can address it at any level. But once the lesson is learned, people's health problems dissipate. A lot of athletes, why do you have hamstring problems? Well, you mess the gut up, unstable lower abdominals. You can't stabilize your spine. Your hamstrings are going to be responsible. So when you run, you pull a hamstring. Hopefully I don't get too much flack for this. Spirituality is the ability to, let's say, think for yourself. Religion is other people thinking for you. And a lot of people that go too spiritual too fast, it takes a lot of responsibility. What are you feeling? And then people say, feel like they're a jerk. And I'm like, well, that's not a feeling. Well, I'm angry. Okay, great. What is a need? Well, I need them to respect me. Okay. What do you want them to do about it? I would really feel appreciated if you didn't like challenge me and all you just hear me. Okay, so every time you're challenged, it feels like you're disrespected and then you feel angry. They're like, yeah, great. I can work with that. A lot of people feel insecure about showing themselves to their partner and they don't know how to separate wants from needs.
Ooh, can you unpack that? All right, today I bring on my buddy Aleks Rybchinskiy. It's been a while. And I remarked when I saw you that you seem just different in the most beautiful way, just energized and just I feel this incredible energy coming off you that I couldn't quite put my finger on, but I felt it, I saw it, I experienced it, and I'm excited to unpack, kind of what your experience has been since we last hung out.
When was it? Was it at the wedding?
May have run into each other a time or two since then, but the last time we really hung was the wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So since then, building our facility, building our practice, and
well, explain to people, like, just to get a little background.
Okay, that's fair.
C.H.E.K Practitioner. Yeah, how would you describe yourself?
I still don't know, but I practice holistic. I'm a holistic health practitioner. I learn so many different things and figure out how they integrate together. So, there's people that study the mind. There's people that focus on only the body. I spent going on 16 years now asking questions like, well, why does it have to be this way? Why can't it be that way? If one thing works over here, maybe it's why is it doing that? So I always have that question in my mind going, well, this seems like the better outcome. Why are people resistant to it? And that applies for what I do in my practice, which basically people come in and they're like, what do you do? I'm like, I don't know. What do you got going on? And then, so we go through their diet. We go through their house. I mean, do they have anything toxic in their house? Do they have metals in their teeth? Like what is stopping someone from being healthy, inside and outside, but also mentally, emotionally, spiritually? And so, if you ever meet someone who has like a great physique, but it can't be sustained without 4 hours in the gym, or someone who has whether they're very affluent, but they can't hold a relationship, and they're going from like woman to woman to woman to woman, or man to man, and you're like, what's going on? Because it can't be that every partner you have is crazy. There has to be a pattern here. So my questions are always, well, why that? And then studying Jung and Steiner through Paul C.H.E.K for so many years, it's unavoidable that you're spending so many years around Paul C.H.E.K that you're not going to absorb all these things and learn. And he was always pointing me in different directions. Personally, because I coached with him for 2 years, and I finished his C.H.E.K Practitioner program and became a Master C.H.E.K Practitioner maybe 6-7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago at this point. Time is kind of a blur.
Yeah.
But that's what I've been spending a lot of my time doing since I've been 18 years old. Didn't go to college, didn't know what I wanted to do. And my parents noticed that I liked working out. And they're like, well, why don't you go become a personal trainer? And they're like, you're getting great results. Why don't you do other people? Went to school, loved it. It was the easiest thing I've ever done. I was like, I get to get paid for this.
Oh, yeah.
And then so I ran into some people who questioned my line of thinking, and then they pointed me to Paul C.H.E.K. And then that was 2009. And so, yeah, I've been consistently learning how to help people with, and my thing has always been, I don't care what you have. As long as it's still attached to your body, like if it's not, go get it reattached and we'll figure it out. And then I'm going to go ask the right questions from all the different right people and find what can impact you from getting better. Because there's always certain things, right? Like you get sleep, but you don't drink water, or you sleep, but you don't eat healthy, or you eat healthy, but you drink a lot of caffeine, or, you eat perfectly, you sleep well, but internally you have an anger problem. So it's like, one can cause your blood pressure to go up. So which one is it? We got to figure out. And the way I assess, the assessments take like 4 hours to do. Then I layer all of these things together, and it usually points to one major problem. And then we start there. And then we work backwards while all the manual therapy comes in, all the orthopedic manual therapy, realigning people's craniums, getting their spine aligned, because the body matches the mind and the mind matches the body.
How often are you finding people misalign skull and spine?
Almost everybody.
Yeah, see, that's what is fascinating to me.
And all these asymmetries that they say in textbooks that they can't move. These are the simple questions. I go, but I literally moved someone's skull. And then so you start finding out that 90% of these textbooks that say the skull fuses after a certain age, they study cadavers. And of course the skull fuses dead.
Yeah,
and so, but on living people, I mean, anyone can do this. You put your fingers in your ears and step on a book and be lopsided, you'll feel your fingers shift. Well, those are your temporal bones moving. Well, if they were fused, how are they moving? It's like little things like that that don't make quite sense to me. And people with facial asymmetries and realigning one of my favorite things to do is whenever I can remember it, because I'm always like, okay, let's get you going. You're paying me a lot of money. But if I remember, I'm like, go look at yourself in the mirror right now, because you have a big facial asymmetry. And then after I fix it, people have like swollen heads, a lot of red in their head.
Yeah.
And then I release their cranium, realign it, move their atlas back on their body, which is the first vertebrae that your skull sits on. It's a very important vertebrae.
And if you don't realign that, you can fix the skull and it would go back. Is that correct?
It would follow the skull. Yeah. And then I have them go look in their facial color changes immediately when they get off the table. And they're like, oh my God, they like sometimes get dizzy and they're like, wait, what's that? It's like, oh, that's your eyes recalibrating your whole reality. And then they go to the mirror and they're like, holy cow, everything's like symmetrical. They put their glasses on and they're even. I'm like, your glasses weren't broken. It's your face was asymmetrical. And so they'll put their glasses on and it sits perfectly again. Little things like that, which to me, I've been doing this so long, it's like seems little, but it's a huge thing that people huge thing that people don't know that they could get better without surgical intervention or anything like that. And so I've been doing that pretty much quietly and getting personal referrals. Do good work on somebody, they refer me another person, and I've 99.9 confidently say that all of my business, almost all of my business is from referral based. Every couple of years, someone will be like, I've been following you for a while. Can I work with you? And it's like, yeah, sure. I'm like caught off guard half the time. But that's what I spend a lot of time doing, is going like, what's interrupting your body from being stable? What's interrupting your mind from being stable? And then you find out in their diet, they're boatloads of sugar. And it's like, no wonder you can't sit still. How it's like if I give anyone a cup full of sugar and they'd be like, okay, let's meditate. They're not going to sit and watch their mind or catch their thoughts or be anywhere near awareness to be aware of what they're saying, what they're doing. And a lot of people end up saying this a lot about their behaviors. Why did I do that? I knew better. And that's getting caught up in your ego. And then your soul reminds you what happens. And you're like, I should be better than this. And then all this I shoulds. And you have that small talk over there.
Yeah.
And word magic. And then you basically, I heard Elliot Hall say this once, you should all over yourself.
Yes.
And it's not one thing. It's never one thing. And that's pushes you a little bit to insanity, trying to figure out what that thing is.
Yeah.
And how does it all play into the big picture of a human being? Like, we're not cadavers. And we're also not flesh bags. And we're also not only spiritual beings. We are spiritual beings with a body, in a body. But why do they call the body a temple? But why do we treat it like a dumpster?
Mm-hmm.
Little things like that where I'm like, well, where's the alignment in all this? And people talk about alignment. Well, where's your mind aligned? Where are your intentions aligned? Where are you looking at the past behaviors and asking, is that really you talking? And people don't really think about that. Like, I had to, I saw some behaviors that my parents were doing when I was younger that I knew wasn't me. And I was like, I'll never do that. And so they taught me by how not to do things.
Mm-hmm.
But they also have some behaviors that I don't know if I could live without if they didn't teach me. Like the discernment, like the cultural discernment of the world and how to like look at what you're doing with your time, look at what you're doing with your money, how to preserve your money and how to make more. And, we're immigrants. We came from Ukraine. It's very like, and then they're doing really well here,
Yeah.
And watching them not go on vacation, go on vacation, but also save everything they can so that we can go on vacation, but also sometimes we couldn't. But I watched them build, and as a kid, I didn't see it,
Yeah.
But then now, as an adult, you've been in my house, that we pulled savings out. And then right when we pulled savings out to build our gym and buy our property, which was for us a stretch, we were doing financially great. And all of a sudden COVID comes around, right? And then all of a sudden I have no business for 9 months. So I'm like, great, what am I going to do? And then having talks with my soul and Sarah, and we knew that the land brought us there to do good things with our time and protect us in that space. So then you have this whole thing about people saying, trust the process. So I'm like, it's a good time to practice that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, we have no money. We're watching our savings do this, dwindle. And it's kind of like, okay, don't panic, but I'm kind of panicking. Don't panic. And Sarah's like, you should go find clients. No one's coming in. And I'm like painting the walls. I'm like, we got to get this done. It's like, I have all this time. Might as well do it. We could hire someone, but like, we don't have any money to hire someone. Like I have time. So it's like exchanging all these things and then not going on vacation for years and building up so that we can go on vacation one day and building up our values, and people's values are all over the place. And so some of our values are health over luxury or experiences. And so we built our life to be our vacation.
Yeah.
Like I look around and you have a beautiful place. Both your places, beautiful. We built ours with the same thing in mind. Like if I only spent all my time here, it would be a vacation. I could do everything I want here. I have my garden. If I want to, I can go get a pool set up. I can, we have a gator, drive a gator around, do yard work. I love that stuff. A lot of people may not, but I love, and Sarah loves, my wife loves that stuff. So like we love to take care of our place and continuously grow it and plant trees and things like that, but none of that escapes what I do for a living.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like when people ask, like, what do you do? I'm like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, I'll put you back together, but we're going to look at the hard stuff. And no subject gets ignored. We're going to talk about your childhood. We're going to talk about what your parents were like. We're going to talk about what they were like when you were, one, when you can remember. Sometimes you got to go ask them, do you have any problems? Like, why do I have these behaviors? Like, did any of these behaviors come from you or dad? Oh, they came from your dad. And then you go to talk to your dad and they're like, oh, they came from your mom. And you're like, all right, well, passing the blame seems like a really good, that's where it comes from. So it's like little things like that. You come back and you're like, okay, what do you want to do with your life? Do you want to live your life passing the blame around? Well, no. Okay, well, then we go into how you feel about it, because the mind, the spirit gives you a task. The mind interprets that task as a thought. Then the thought creates an emotional charge. And then that charge comes into your body. And then that's when people do somatic training and trying to move all these emotions out of our system. Because if, let's say some people have the task of self-control. Their thoughts are, he insulted me. The emotions are anger, physical reaction, I might punch you in the face. Goes to jail, kids, whatever, creates a whole problem, financial stress. So you can restrain the physical and be like, nope. And that's step one. You know what I mean? You can address it at any level. But once the lesson is learned, these things dissipate. Like people's health problems dissipate once you learn why you have the problem. A lot of athletes, why do you have hamstring problems? Well, you mess the gut up, you're going to have an unstable lower abdominals. You can't control your transverse abdominis. You can't stabilize your spine. Your hamstrings are going to be responsible. So when you run, you pull a hamstring. And then it's like you look at, well, it's almost like most athletes, I can almost look at them and go like, what do you eat throughout the day? And then sometimes they'll tell me gluten, dairy, and like gut inflammatory abs. And you're like, but it's not working.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And hopefully that kind of did it. That kind of describes a
I
little
think
bit.
that's a good start. What I love about your approach to Aleks is, indeed, you kind of talked about in the beginning, is identify like the big rock and like, let's move the biggest rock we can, get the most bang for our buck, and not get trapped in this idea as I have so much shit wrong, because we all have our things. We're always going to have things to work on. It's like, how do we move the needle the most? And maybe that big rock shifts. It's like a paradigm shift for your whole being. And that oftentimes, you can probably speak to this better than me, but that creates the momentum that some people need to be like, oh, this isn't my fault. These thoughts I'm having, this brain fog, this lack of mission, it's all tied to largely this one thing that just hasn't been addressed because you had no idea that it was even an issue. And it could be, again, misalignment of the head, skull. It's these things that you can watch all the YouTube videos you want, see these influencers on Instagram, and there's some good things in there. They're teaching good principles. Sure, that stuff is valuable, but it's like not until someone gives a proper assessment of where, the N=1 is, where you are in your particular orientation to the world, that you really start to have the ability to unlock these things. And then you can layer in these other good practices and they can be beneficial. But if your body's not ready to receive cold plunge, you're just going to make it more sympathetic and you're going to create more stress. But, David Goggins said it was great for me to do this. There is a time and a place for it. And there are different, uses, whether it's a mental, emotional thing for the cold plunge. It could be a physical thing. There's all these different benefits. But if your container can't handle it, it's not going to benefit you.
Like monks, they punch sand. Have you seen the Iron Fist training?
No.
They train their hands to be able to break rocks. And so whenever you could hit sand repetitively, throw a sandbag at your hand. There's all these different, I don't know the deepness of it, but let's say you hit a sandbag or sand, punch sand for like 100 times per hand. If you do that every day, your hands will get bigger and stronger and more dense. If you punch a wall once and you break your hand, well, you have to rest. So there is a traumatic level where people can push themselves into trauma. And I know that word gets used for like everything's traumatic now. Like they spelled my name wrong at Starbucks, trauma, Yeah. So, but as there is a true trauma that occurs when someone pushes, you hear it on medicine. They open too fast. They don't know how to integrate. Some people get too much information and they don't know how to handle it. Some people, hopefully I don't get too much flack for this, but spirituality is the ability to, let's say, think for yourself. Religion is other people thinking for you. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people that go too spiritual too fast, it takes a lot of responsibility to look your wife in the face, your kids in the face, and change the way you are. And you don't even have to necessarily like grovel or you don't have to feel bad about it. You go, I'm making a change. That is it. I'm going to do this thing. I have programmed you guys with these responses, and I will face the outcomes and consequences of you not trusting me until I fulfill these obligations to myself, most importantly, so I can model good behavior to you guys.
Yeah, well, I think it's just this idea that I don't know if we're not pre-programmed. We definitely come in with this program, and I think you're talking about it a little bit here, is when we get into this medicine space, it does open us up to looking ourselves in the mirror. And some people don't have the capacity to do that with the integration. And maybe it's too much. Maybe they still feel a lot of guilt and shame around the way they showed up or didn't show up for their partner, their kids, their people. And in that, it's not about, I mean, I think making amends is important, to get that off your heart and kind of clean your side of the street. And those amends don't mean shit if you don't make the commitment to, as you said, to yourself, because it's not enough to make it to them. It's not going to work. It'll work for a little while and it'll feel really good. And then it'll be a heavy lift because you haven't done the work on you. And I think that's the beauty of your work is when we focus on us and let's say healing. I mean, there's an element of that. Again, that gets heavy too, but it's like, just like getting your shit realigned in all the buckets of your life. Then you don't have to come and make these proclamations to the ones you love. They just see you're different and you are modeling the behavior that you want to model. And it just happens. And I think it also takes the pressure off of, fuck, I told him I was going to go do this. And now I've got, it's like, no, like just be with what you can be with right now. And I think the beauty of your work is you're sitting there holding their hand in a sense and allowing them to unpack the things and letting them know just because you think you should be farther along on this journey, that's not important. You're taking a step in the right direction. You're becoming aware of the things that you weren't aware of. And as we both know, that's step number one. We're so blind to so much of this stuff. How are we ever meant to fix it if we don't know what it is? And you're like the guy who comes in and cleans up the windshield. Is like, hey, this is what we're looking at. Actually, it's not the things that Instagram told you, glutathione or like whatever, right? Those are important when the time is right. When we're trying to, let's say, optimize, we're trying to get us back on path. Yeah, I love that about your work.
It's fun. I get villainized a lot by even my own people that I coach.
In what regard? How come? What are they villainizing you for?
Telling the truth. Because like I have no attachment to
you're a straight shooter too. Yeah, people aren't used to that.
No.
Especially with coaches. They're like, hey, you're doing fucking great. And you will be clear with them that you're doing the right job, but you're not going to be literally holding their hand and giving them pats on the back every time, they wipe their ass.
Correct. If someone is doing good work, I tell them. If someone is slacking, I'll tell them. And if they want to leave, that's great. Make room for someone else. And I don't mean that in a condescending way in the least. I mean that in a very genuine way. If you're not ready, that's okay. Someone else is. And people come to me and they're very sick and their body, they can't figure out. They spend hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to fix their bodies. And then I go and I tell them I have to charge them more money. But I always tell them everything up front. Here's the price. It's not hidden on my website. Here's exactly what you're getting. Here's exactly what you're paying for. Here's exactly what we're going to do. And I expect you to do that because also you're a reflection of my work. And I'm not going to go fire you as long as you're making progress. And I haven't had to fire anyone in, 10 years. Is because a lot of coaches want the same results as like an Instagram filter. Like how fast I can do this.
Yeah.
But it's like any good builder can like this house is immaculate. You can go to another fast build house and you're like, whoa. And then you're like, wait a second. There's like ridges here and you're like, why aren't these connected? And then it's going to be problems. Hey, this outlet doesn't even work. Like, what the hell? Like I paid a bunch of money for this house and it looks big, but like there's all these things that don't work. And when you take your time, and I'm not in a rush to get someone where they need to be. And so if someone comes in and they're like eating McDonald's every day and they're drinking Coke and like as a C.H.E.K practitioner, like, yeah, you get them off that stuff. But like, yeah, but at what pace? Okay, well, I got to figure out what their life looks like. Where do you drive by? Okay, let's get you a water bottle. Can you do that? I could do that. Let's put little lines on it. Can you drink certain times? Can we at least drink half of it? As long as you're moving forward the needle to the right direction, I don't care what it is. You keep having fights, we'll keep talking about it. And I'll keep reminding you to the same thing. Here's your work. Yes, they piss you off, but you pissed you off. You're in charge of your emotions. So what's pissing you off about them? Okay, well, we're not communicating. Well, let's figure out how to communicate. What are you trying to communicate? And almost like the way I describe it is like, when you put your headphones in your pocket and they come out all tangled?
Yeah.
We're going to untangle them together. And then when it's straight, you're like, oh, this place connects here and I can listen to here. Fantastic. And so many people have their words untangled or tangled up. And they actually don't know what they're communicating because they're not communicating. They're saying things. They're making sounds. And it's not actually telling the person what they need to know, how you're experiencing, how you're feeling, what you're going through. And I heard this thing a long time ago. It's like when people yell, it's because they feel like they're far apart. Mm-hmm. And I don't know who said it. I want to give credit to it, but I don't know who said it.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
And here we are, we're not yelling.
No.
Because we had a whole bonding session downstairs. We talked, we got caught up a lot and so many things. And it's a really great place to be in when things are in harmony. But when you come to someone, like, they got to see what harmony looks like. People are so trained on dopamine and they don't know when they're going to get the thing. And sometimes it's years. Like, how do you tell someone like, hey, when you go to school, you're going to get your degree in 2, then you get your master's in 4. It's like, you do these things, you get your degree. It's like spirituality. It's like, whenever you're ready, you get it. It could be you're driving and it like hits you and you're like, oh, I get it. And then that's it. Ailment, boop, space, boop.
Yeah.
And it happens so interestingly that you can't force it, but people are trained to be in a rush.
Yes.
But
I think what the underlying theme here is like, we're here, you're here, I'm here too for this longevity piece. And longevity takes time and presence in the process. And we're so trained to have a finish line and an outcome and say we did it. And we know in this work and a lot of this other work that we'll get into around spirituality and physical fitness and mental well-being and all that, it's a process, it's a journey that we're going to be engaged in as long as we're on this earth. And if we can just accept that and not, wait for someone to hand us the trophy that we did it, and it's just this like being present with the process. And sometimes that sounds boring. And I know that in my experience, when I've really felt that, like, time just goes away and I don't worry about where I'm not trying to be anywhere other than where I am right now. And again, when you feel that, it's amazing. It doesn't mean you're going to stay there. I've felt it in the past and I didn't stay there. I dropped back into some old patterns and, some old mindsets. There's a reminder that it's there. And so to stay, kind of somewhat vigilant that this is a process, and what are the things that walk me back to that path of kind of timelessness in a sense. How does some of, just talking about your work, like, what are some common misconceptions about what people are chasing besides the kind of the quick fix, but, your approach to, well, you brought it up earlier. I know, again, it's kind of a touchy word, but like trauma, a lot of people think it's just this mental thing. I got to get over this story that I'm telling myself. And then I can just tell myself a different story, then I'll be good and the trauma will be gone, or some version of that, right? But it goes much deeper than that.
It's as deep as you want to go, but it's also as simple as you want it to be. Because it could be as simple as you become aware of it, you could change it. Like, because there's, I give a lot of grace to people trying to figure out their minds. I've spent almost my whole life analyzing my mind and trying to figure out why I'm behaving certain ways, why people are calling me certain names. And I'm like, am I that thing? Am I that thing? And then like people would always call me like a jerk, or they're like, you're an asshole. And I'm like, why am I an asshole? And I'm like, but I said this thing and this thing was true. And like, I have no attachment to them changing the thing. I'm only giving it I'm not an asshole. I'm like blunt. Maybe I can deliver the way I speak a little bit differently. Maybe I can, because like a year later, they'll come back and be like, you were right about that thing, but it ruined our friendship for a year. So I'm like, how can I speak to people without ruining friends? So I got to learn how to deliver the truth, not sweet, but enough that it doesn't hit them over the head with a hammer.
Clear but kind.
And that's my whole thing. And then what does the universe give me? It gives me, a wife that's older than me. It gives me 3 kids that are in wildly different age brackets. And then as they grow, learning how to communicate with all of them, and they're all girls. I have 4 women in the house. And so at every different stage, they are on different cycles. They're on different, wavelength, different stressors. The oldest one is trying to figure out where to go to college, and now she's in college, and different stresses are there versus what the one in high school now, and versus what, the youngest is going like, why are people not being honest in school? Now it's like, oh, how do I deliver these things in a way that can deliver a message without dismissing them? And I mean, that's a lot of work every single day because I'm not like that. Naturally, it's always so easier. Like you have a nail in the wall, hit it back in, but it's like not always the solution, because sometimes you want to hang a picture from it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you got all these pictures. It's like you need nails to hang pictures. So which one is it? And I got to discern. And once it's in the wall, it's like, it's gone. Now you got to like dig in, pull it out. So I have to like stop and pause and figure out, be more intentional, be more mindful. So when people have their traumas come up, you can go as deep as you want and being like, where does this come from? Where does this, again, who taught me this? Who talks to me like this? Did I learn this from a TV show? Did I learn this from a role model, like the WWE star? It's like, that's where do I hear this? But then also, you don't actually need permission to change. You could be like, you know what? I don't like this behavior and I feel it's not me, so I'm not going to be that way. I apologize to myself for missing it, but also I'm also grateful that I caught it. And like, now is better than never. Or even whenever is better than never.
Yes.
And so because I've had so much training, I could dissect where that problem came from and see how it reflects in other people. And once I heal something, I can see it everywhere. Once you heal from an issue, you're going to notice like, oh, that's a relationship. That's a relationship that's on the rocks. And you're like, because I fixed my relationship, and you're like, ooh, that's going to be 3 months, if they don't fix that, So again, it could be simple, but it also could be very complex if you're resistant to actually wanting to get rid of the behavior, because sometimes it feels safe to be in that behavior.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. Like there's I don't know if it's codependency, but the trauma is the right terminology, but there's a safety, there's a comfort of like, this is my thing, and it's can give some people purpose. And I don't mean to downplay people's trauma, but the relationship to the trauma can be such that you don't want it to go away.
Yeah. It's like an easy one is like, are you stoic because nothing affects you, or are you really sensitive? And then stoicism is your default mode. And stoicism does not work in relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good luck being with a wife that is empathetic and compassionate. Maybe if she's Russian, she's like, I don't care, whatever, I need space. You're like, okay, but with someone that you're trying to get deep connection with, like a person misinterpreting stoicism and ignoring problems isn't going to make them go away. It's only going to inflame them. And it's going to make you feel very isolated and alone. Like strong, independent women, like, are you strong and independent, or have people let you down so much that you have to take care of things for yourself? And it's like, which one is it?
Mm-hmm.
And why can't you do things for yourself, but also rely on people? And if they, have these expectations around certain things, like, my parents never looked after me. My parents never took care of me. And this applies to men too. They always let me down. They never showed up to my games, and you become hardened. You're like, I'll do it by myself. And then you isolate yourself from people trying to help you. And then you become blind to people trying to help you. And then you're wondering, why is no one trying to help me when you've pushed them all away? So then that's a scary thing to go like, how do I ask for help? And then you have to create this new idea of what help looks like. Because like, hey, can you help me with move this table? Or like, hey, can you show up at this time? So it's like, I always tell people, start small. Like you give your kids a plastic cup before you give them, and then a steel cup before you give them a glass cup. We don't like plastic. So you give them a steel cup later, but it bangs and chips your floor. You're like, all right, plastic it is for now. And then you give them a little bit and then they drop it. And then you're like, cool. That's, that's how I build trust with people. I give them an important thing about me, but if they drop it, it's okay.
Yeah.
And then as trust grows, I give them bigger things to hang on to. And then you can hand someone a Fabergé egg and go, don't drop this. And then people who are in your life that you trust and love and appreciate, and you're like, I don't think my hands are strong enough to hold this. Can you hold this for me? And that's a metaphor for whatever that looks like. And then the person go, wow, I don't have to carry this anymore. Someone else has helped me carry this. And that takes a lot of time. You have to pin it. And again, when you're so trapped in that reality, the trauma creates your future. And so you're going to keep seeing more of the same until you have an idea of what a different outcome looks like.
Yeah, I would say in some ways I identified with that kind of avatar that you shared, kind of a particular narrative around my upbringing about how I had to kind of do a lot of things on my own. And while I saw the benefit in that of being very self-sufficient and really being able to advocate for myself, I felt there was an aspect of, mom and dad that didn't show up. And done a lot of plant medicine ceremonies, and I've done a lot of inner work and moved the needle on that stuff and felt like it was in a good place. And it wasn't until recently that whole narrative just poof, it went away. And I started to see all the ways that truly that my mom and dad were capable of showing up, that they did, and they over-delivered. Whether it was, I've spoken about this before, but whether it was me going to a boarding school that we couldn't afford, or going to one of the best, most expensive private colleges in the country, them having to take out loans on both, and bigger loans than they really should have had to, because, my parents' business, the bookkeeper didn't do a very good job of, kind of, it made it look like they made a lot more than they did, rather than, people are really good about showing up. We don't make any money, but they were making a certain amount, but it looked like they were making way more. And so they had to take out loans. I certainly did too. I mean, that's what you do as a kid, but that's just one example of how, oh, wow, that they didn't need to send me away to boarding school. They certainly could have said, you got to go to a school in state that we can afford. They didn't do that. And, my dad, call it like it is, like wasn't emotionally available in ways that men are today and that I am with my kids, right? But that son of a bitch had a really hard upbringing. And our friend Chase, I was sharing this with him, and he's like, he goes, yeah, your dad didn't speak Spanish either, because no one taught him. And it's like, it's as simple as that. So how could I ever expect him to show up like another father showed up for his kid that was one of my best friends, right? But I also look at, my friends that had that dad, and no judgment, but they're not doing any of the work, they don't have any of the curiosity that you and I have. And so I really believe that my soul picked my parents for that reason. They showed me what it means to show up, whether it was work ethic. I mean, those two owned a grocery store from the time I think I was in 5th grade until, I was out of the house, and they worked 7 days a week. They would take one vacation a year, but they showed up every day at that store. 6 o'clock, they opened during the week, and 7 o'clock on the weekends. And they were there all day. My dad would come take a nap every day. But they showed what commitment looks like. And they had their challenges in a relationship. That doesn't have anything to do with me. Who did what to whoever. I'm sorry that happened. For them, it doesn't impact how they showed up for me, their son, in what they've always wanted for me, that they've always wanted to give me a better life, in the kind of traditional sense, right? And they certainly were had a huge impact on my ability to do that. And they've always been nothing but proud. And I don't know that that's always the case. I certainly know that a lot of parents like to co-opt their kids' success as in they had a big hand in it. My parents have never done that. They've just always been like, wow, so proud of you. That's so amazing. And my point in all of this is that it can change when you least expect it. I wasn't intending to do deep family work, and it just like my eyes opened up and I saw a new story. And it was a much more beautiful one. And it creates such a different relationship with each of my parents and frankly, my sister, that all the plant medicines and all the therapy, I don't know if I'd have gotten there. It just kind of happened, but it's fertile ground. They all had a role in it for certain. But I'd be lying if I said, in fact, the last year I went into a kind of ayahuasca ceremony with the intention of healing my relationship with my dad, and made big strides, but there was still a wall there. And I had probably talked to him in the last year 3 or 4 times, and it's very, not very deep conversations, let's say. And it's like, so that is creating fertile ground. My intention has been for a long time to do that. And it's just like, you gotta give up the how and the when. And if you just allow for it to happen, it'll fucking surprise you. So I'm living proof that it can change if you want it to. You truly want it to. You just may not know how. And it helps to have someone there to ask the appropriate questions and to get you to look in that mirror, which can be pretty brutal sometimes. And that's, I think, where you're able to show up with not attachment and be the reflection and hold that space for them. And just like your demeanor just doesn't change. As long as I've known you, this is people, what you're hearing or seeing today, this is what you get. It's just very level-headed, equanimous. You're doing your own work and you're not trying to co-opt their work. This is their work. You're here as a vessel, a guide to share your wisdom, the things that you know that can help them open these things up if they are willing to, if they choose to take those steps. Yeah. So thanks for that work you're doing, brother.
Of course. Well, what sometimes helps, maybe while you're on that journey to trying to get a little deeper with your dad, if you remove the expectation of that and like be there for whatever happens, you might get deep. Because then people tell me all the time, like, I don't know why I told you that. I'm like, because I'm here with listening. You felt safe and you started talking. And I'm not judging you. So whatever it is you're talking about, you felt safe enough to talk about it with me. And that happens a lot. Like, I don't know why I dumped all that on you. It's like, well, feel safe around me. That's okay. It's good. It mirrors to me that's what I'm going for, and there's some people that I can only talk sports with, in Sarah's family. It's like sports, weather, it gets too deep and it's like, how are the Cubs doing? What's the score of the game? And I'm like, that is what it is. But every now and then we'll be walking and something like, do you ever stay up at night having nightmares? And I'm like, sometimes, it might be no, but I'm like, what you got? I keep having this reoccurring thing. Oh, interesting. Do you ever think, and then obviously I'm interpreting the symbolism and I'm like, oh, that kind of sounds like it reminds me of a story. And I'm reminding them of a story, like trying to help them by not placing it on them and placing it on me. And I'm talking about, and then they're like, kind of sounds like something I'm going through. And I'm like, oh, weird. Because I do have the archetype of the fool.
Yeah.
And so I do have a trend to make people think that it's their idea. And I want it to be their idea. And I have to quickly discern whether they can handle it being my idea or their idea. And once they get healthy enough, I remind them, like, everything you're doing, you're my ideas. Like, I told you this, because sometimes they forget, and it's not to bring them down, it's to bring them to reality. People get so lost in what's good that's happening that they're like, oh, it must be my idea. And then they're listening to other people that bring them back down. And I'm like, no, let's bring it back. I'm trying to help you. And we need to make sure. And then I slowly hand over the reins to their mind, but give them enough awareness to know who they're speaking to, how they're speaking to themselves, and where these things are coming from. So it's not another trained behavior. I'm not trying to train people into like whispering things in their ear. I'm reflecting to them and I'm saying things, and they go, that's a good idea. And I'm like, great. Because I give people options and they choose roads. I make them have choices, and they end up choosing their own roads based on choices that I give them. And so in the same equation, it's like I've removed the expectation of what they're going to say, no matter who I'm with. And sometimes you'd be surprised when you're talking shop, and I'm like, oh, well, this is, my wife's family, and I can't expect them to be on the level of interest that I'm interested in. Well, let's figure out what they're interested in. Let's talk about that. And then all of a sudden it turns, and you're like, we got there. Don't know how, but we got there.
See, I love this so much, because I think some people who are, for lack of a better term, kind of in this work, right? And have done a lot of personal work, and they're met with someone like, your in-laws, who are kind of, let's just, again, for lack of a better term, kind of speaking at a certain sports level. I would argue that they're testing you, right? Just like I have buddies that I play golf with all summer long up in Idaho. And they're not necessarily doing the work that I'm doing. And we talk a lot of stuff about sports. We talk shit. We do the whole thing. But there are those times. So they're testing me, right? Are you still quote unquote normal? Can you still fucking resonate with us? Like, because we know you like sports. It's like, absolutely. That's me too. And then when we're one-on-one, the stuff comes up because they don't feel comfortable talking about it in front of the other guys. I do. That doesn't mean they have to, but there's like this test, and they know that I'm safe. And so that they can come to me, and I could just see that, as you're saying, like, it's almost like they're testing. Are you like one of us? Or are you just this guy who's like so, spiritually evolved that, we just look like peons? It's like, no, I can meet anybody where they're at. I can play whatever game. We can keep it right here, and I am good. And I think it's so important to be able to tune into that, because as you and I have talked about this before, but we're everything. Whether we choose to like it or not, we're all the things that we're really proud of and are fun and everybody thinks is cool. And the shit that's the other stuff, and it's just, how does that express itself? And where's the discernment with that? And I couldn't help but, as you were talking about it, I kind of got like a little tickle, because I fucking love those guys. And I've had periods in my life when I've been deep in this work on some level, but not as conscious on this other level, where I've been like, maybe that's just not for me anymore. Maybe it's time to move on from that whole experience, because I'm doing other things. And it's like, that's a simple, small-minded way to look at the work I'm doing. If I can't meet everybody where they're at, that's on me. And it's not about being more spiritually evolved or whatever it is. That's all bullshit anyway, because I've shown that as evolved as I'd been at some points, I went way back down the other side of that kind of mountain. And one of the things that someone shared with me recently, when I was just kind of like doing an assessment of like some of the things that I'm involved in, and the work I'm really meant to do in the world, and someone that I hold in such high regard, he's like, man, it's so important that you're integrated into these different communities that you are, because that's, for me, I see myself as a bit of a bridge builder, to bring this work in a very approachable way that people that don't hang out in the circles that we hang out in here in Austin. And we're just flooded with, let's just talk about like with men that are fucking dope and are like curious about stuff and will hold space for you having a different view about whatever it is. And we can have fun conversations and talk about some wild ass shit. And, you know,
friends.
And we're still friends, you know, and they have these deep relationships. And I think bringing that resonance and that frequency in whatever way it lands for other groups of people that just don't have access. Again, these guys weren't taught Spanish either. And so how can I give them the, you know, fucking hooked on phonics or whatever version of that and make it approachable? And so I love that you brought that up. It's just a reminder to me that the real gift is to be able to show up in any room and be yourself and resonate at the level that, you know, you'll be on the same page as everybody else.
Yeah, still follow your values. It's good, important to know what your values are. But you can relate. I think some of the most spiritual people, truly, I'm not saying this is like who act spiritual. I'm saying some of the most spiritual people who are dialed in, aligned, know themselves, can relate to anybody. They could be talking to a child. They can be talking to someone, you know, elderly, and everyone in between, and they can still resonate wisdom through them. Because something that I've been doing recently is people come in and they start venting, and I'll say that, hey, cut the spiritual language out. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, stop hiding how you're feeling through how empowered and transcendental your experience. Like, no, tell me, what are you going through? Like, because I recognize that the person doesn't know what they mean by that word, because how they're using it and the context and what they're complaining about. So you couldn't have had that experience as deep as maybe I've had, but I can relate because I can see, I remember when I was like that.
Yes.
And so I go, tell me what you're actually going through. Like, use dumb words. Like,
yeah. Meat and potatoes.
Yeah. Meat and potatoes. You know, I sad because, you know, she did not rub my back. And you're like, great. How does sad make you feel? Okay, sad. But what would you want? I want her rub
Make
my
his
back.
sad, see Dick cry.
Yeah.
It's Jane's fault.
Yeah. and then and it's like, let's get to the bottom of it. Like, what's going on, you know? And then sometimes I talk to their partners too, or whoever we have a conflict with. And then I find out, like, it's like something is like, well, I was on my period, so I was bloated and I didn't want to, you know, be involved. And it's like, are you serious? And then I go back to that person who was complaining. I'm like, did you miss this whole thing? Did you even ask? Did you even know? Well, yeah, I was even pissed off about that too. And they're like, well, why are you this person that is like you're in union with, and you have transcendental experiences, and then you miss a simple communication that may be unspokenly, that they weren't uncomfortable in their bodies and that they didn't want to lean over or give you something. So you needed something. And then we come on, they're like, and then you spell it out so clearly, but it's like, let's go back to human level. Let's talk like people in words that we all know the definitions to.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do think, and it's, that is something that we can be inundated with here in Austin, in particular, with a lot of this spiritual language and it sounding really cool. And I've only met a handful of people that can speak it and articulate it properly. And it's like, okay, I hear everything you're saying is resonating. I don't speak that way, but I know it's authentic coming from you. And then I think a lot of times people do hide behind, and it's this and it's that, and they get all up in the ether, and it's like, bro, just talk to me like one of your boys. Like, come on. Like, do we have to bro down here? Like, I need real language because this is too airy fairy. Like, it's okay to sprinkle it in here and there, but when it's the whole context of how we're talking, it's not landing for me.
I think to describe an experience of what you had, sometimes that's the word you have to use. Because actually, when you get so deep, you're like, you know, it's all colors. It's all, everything was nuts. I don't know how to describe it, you know. But when you describe experiences, it's to relate. Hey, I saw this and that, but when you are confused and your mind is tangled, that is not the time to use complexity in what are you feeling, and then people say, I feel like, they're a jerk. And I'm like, well, that's not a feeling. How do you feel? Well, I'm angry. Okay, great. That's a feeling. I can connect to that, And then what is a need? Well, I need them to respect me. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We'll pin that.
Yeah.
And then, well, what do you want them to do about it? Well, I want them to, I would really feel appreciated if you didn't like challenge me and all you just hear me, and it sounds like, okay, so every time you're challenged, it feels like you're disrespected. And then you feel angry when you're disrespected. They're like, yeah. You're like, great. That's all we need to get to the bottom of. And then I could work with that.
Yeah. I had kind of a situation with Peyton the other day where I shared something with her. And in the past, when I've shared something that was just on my heart, something I experienced and she's kind of asked me about it, reflected or whatever, sometimes it's like, I didn't want you to say anything. I literally just wanted to be witnessed by my loving partner. She doesn't know that necessarily. I think as men, it's been drilled into our head and we still fuck it up and just listen. Mm-hmm. But the women, that's not necessarily their role, right? And in this particular case, I said it. And as I finished, I said, yeah, I just want you to receive that. And she just fucking smiled and was like, thank you for communicating that to me. Because she doesn't know, like, I maybe, when I'm vulnerable, I'm asking for feedback in the past, and in this case, I just had the clarity, like, I don't want this to get touched. I just want this to be there for you to witness it, for me to say it in front of you and for it to be that. And, and I hear this kind of example you give, like, this guy could have easily said, like, I'm going to say so, and when he's done, like, I just let it be here for me, and I just want you to receive this or witness me, whatever it is. And then she's not, if she decides to say something, then that is on her, and I don't know if it's disrespect or whatever, but she's clearly not getting the very clear lines of communication. But when we speak clearly, it's just, gosh, shit gets way easier. It's just hard. And so I'm curious, now that I think about it, why is it so difficult? And I don't want to say I know it happens both ways, but like, why is it difficult for men sometimes to communicate needs clearly? I know why I've had my challenges in the past. I'm happy to speak on that. But I'd love to get your take on why is it hard for men to go to their women with their needs? Because I've heard this quite a bit when I've shared with people just like some things that I've struggled with. It's very resonant for them. And I don't know how it plays into the overall kind of trend, which I think has finally reversed with this whole quote unquote toxic masculinity and all that bullshit. But like, where do you sit with the challenges of authentic, clear communication of needs for men with their partners?
I take it even a step back. My first question is, do you guys love each other? Yeah. So with love comes responsibility. And if you're willing to be responsible for your part or their part, that's a start. When people usually like want to break up, I go, if these things were fixed, would you still be with this person? 90% say yeah. Maybe even 95. Or like, absolutely. You painted this picture for me that like exactly what my needs are met. Like, yeah, I love this person. Yeah, great. We're starting there. You love this person. A lot of people feel insecure about showing themselves to their partner because they will either get emasculated, dismissed, their needs not met. Because once again, let's use our friend Chase, they were not taught Spanish. They were not taught how to communicate. They were taught how to say words out loud of what they want. And they don't know how to separate wants from needs.
Ooh, let's Can you unpack that? Because there is a real distinction there. It can be super subtle, but it's massive.
Yeah. People say I need to have sex. You don't. I want to have sex. I want to, but what's behind that? I want to connect. Or I'm so frustrated. All I want to do is bang it out. Like, if you can present that with no expectation of getting it, you allow your partner who has a free will to fulfill that or not. If you have a need, like
connection.
I
need connection, but it's, as a man, that's hard to say to your woman. We've grown up thinking that that's weak. What a pussy. You need connection?
Or we don't know what connection is.
Yeah.
Connection is us in the room. Like, we're connecting.
Yeah.
We're connecting right now.
Not having sex.
No.
Not yet. That won't be on YouTube. That'll be on YouPorn.
But people don't know what frames connection. And it could be different for everybody. For some people, it could be sitting having coffee. For some people, it could be stroking their hair. For some people, it could be listening. For some people, it could be going on a walk together, physical touch. You have all your five love languages. You can easily like clue into what I'm saying into those and like, oh, well, where do I have needs? And then with those needs not being met, you know how you feel without those needs being met, right? Here's the fun part. Once you meet those needs for yourself, you find out those are actually not needs. And you stop being so needy because once you saturate the physical touch from yourself, which could mean, you know what? I'm going to massage myself. I'm going to do dry brushing. I'm going to go get a massage. And it doesn't have to be the responsibility of my partner to do that for me. So your needs will ultimately change, but there's values that stick around, right? Like the value of maybe respect or commitment to working on yourself. And that could be an open-ended thing. And that looks like, hey, I know I committed to working on myself. I'm literally working on it. I'm aware that I'm messing up. That in a sense is connecting with your partner. Hey, this is where I'm at. I know you're way ahead of me. You don't have this problem. I have this problem. And, it's scary for men to do that because they were never either shown that or all of their friends are like, that's gay.
Mm-hmm.
You pussy. Like, or some kind of colorful variation of that sorts. I got made fun of for cutting out gluten like 12 years ago. My friends would roast me for cutting out gluten.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's my value. I was like, this sucks on my gut. I'm done, And then it became for me. And when my friends were making fun of me, like, oh, this guy can't handle bread. What is he, a duck? Whatever it is. And I'm like, yeah, I'm bloated. Like, it's not my decision. You eat gluten. I don't care. You know? And then it became this like, because I was secure with my decision, I didn't care what people made fun of me for. Turns out, a bunch of my friends don't eat gluten now. You know what I mean? Because they're like, my parents don't eat gluten because they would come over from Chicago and we don't have gluten in my house. And they're like, wow, I crap better, I sleep better, I think better, my emotions are stable. Like, do you think it's gluten? And I'm like, what do you think? Like, yeah, okay.
You weren't trying to sell them. As you said, you were just secure in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love, go ahead.
Oh, so kind of wrap it up is the difference between needs and wants are very, let's say, call them either primitive or very essential things that almost are deal breakers. Wants are things that like you would like to have more often. I would like my wife to cook me dinner. I also recognize she's very busy and she's very smart and she has stuff to do. And getting in front of that woman, it would be the same as getting in front of a train. And so because I love her, I don't expect her to make dinner all the time. All I would like sometimes is go, hey, where are we at on dinner? Got nothing. Great. I tune my mind to make dinner for myself because I'm a great cook. I don't need her to make dinner for me. Now, if I was working 16 hours a day and I was providing everything, then I'd be like, hey, I don't want to get McDonald's. I need this from you until I don't need to work so much. So a need that maybe when I'm working a lot, is present, then when I'm not working a lot, it's not present. So it becomes a want at that point. You see what I'm saying? But there's certain values that become needs: respect, honor. Don't talk about our problems in front of our friends. Something like that. Until we're like, we sort it out, then talk about it, whatever. There's certain things that are like, it feels like you would cross a line if you didn't meet that. And that's it's simple for a lot of people. Don't cheat on me, That's a need,
Yeah.
For a lot
I need you to keep your dick in your pants.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I'm not around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need you to treat me with respect when we're in public, and you'll even hear women like, degrade me at home, but treat me with respect in public. And you're like, first of all, you're like, excuse me, what?
Yeah, wow.
Like, respect at home is great too.
Yeah.
But it's like,
it's not an either or.
That's what I'm that's what I'm needing right now. Like, if we don't figure this out at home, we could figure it out at home. But if you do this to me in public, like, you lose love. You know what I mean? So that's how I make distinctions, and then needs go into values a lot, like what we're talking about.
Well, and maybe just drill down a little bit deeper. Like, I know that when I've been carrying something that takes a lot of courage to share with Peyton, there's this sense of like dread. There's this sense of this archetype that I've, kind of identified with, and we were talking about before we even got on this, like the provider, that he becomes a fraud because he's not providing in the way that my mind is working in that moment. And so with that, I go to my wife, and there's this sense, like, so what's going on in my body that I feel like she's not going to love me anymore. When I look at it like from the outside, it's so silly. And in the experience, it's very real. And there's a lot of tension. The heart is racing, and it's like, fuck, I got to say this thing. I got to let her know, and all of a sudden I'm not the provider anymore. And, when I do share, and she does show incredible grace and love, and whatever we need to do, we do. And I know, and I have actually confidence that that's what's going to happen, but there's a part of me that feels like that is not going to happen. Right. And then as we were talking about earlier, it's just what I'm doing is I'm identifying with an unreal expectation of the provider role, because that has already been filled. And it's just a reminder that when I identify too much with that, everything gets really hard for me. I get completely disconnected from my heart, which disconnects me from my wife, from my kids, from the mission that I'm on, how I'm meant to show up in the world. And I just get in this scarcity mindset, and I get super judgy about decisions I've made in the past. And I take it all on me, when it's like, yes, I absolutely had a role in that. And maybe the role was to show me it ain't working anymore, identifying with this archetype, right? So all that to say, what goes on in the body that when I know, I feel quite confident she's going to respond in the best way possible, and yet it's still so fucking hard.
Jung calls it a complex. So you can, if your memory allows, go back to when you were treated like that, when you said something like, hey, I want you to show up to my game. And then it never, so it's like that instance gets, you save yourself from that instance by not allowing it to happen. The other thing is, why do you need to control the other person's reaction?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you hope that they would give you the same grace, if you reacted poorly, and it's going like, okay, well, maybe I've clumsily said it. You could preface it with things like, hey, I don't know how to say this quite. I haven't quite pieced it together. So you preface it with like, hey, I could mess this up. And so if they react poorly, I am not controlling their reaction. If they react poorly, it's only because I miscommunicated something. So then my task is to go figuring out like, well, how did I mess that up? And if you can get through that, then, depending on if it crosses their values or not, decisions have to be made around that topic. And maybe even the rejection of the provider archetype, because what is a provider for you? For you, I keep hearing it be financially, but you're still providing love. You're providing safety. You're providing attention. You're providing your time. You're providing encouragement, gratitude. You're providing being a good role model. So when people assign one thing, like look how many kings there are, like in history. How many of them are exactly the same? All different. So that's the beauty of archetypes, is that they are ideas of God that want to be represented, and they all come out novel in some way. And so your provider archetype, you're like, hey, I'm really good at providing this way, but how else can I provide?
Yeah.
And then you start piecing together, where am I not providing? Let's start there. And you could start expanding that, and then going like, is this even about the provider archetype? Because you're a smart human being, and you go, well, instead of judging myself, going like, okay, write this down. How did I learn? Don't do that again. Blew a bunch of money in crypto back when it dropped. Sarah was very upset, rightfully so. We needed that money back then,
Yeah.
When I learned the lesson, and she was upset, and I remember walking into the kitchen, grabbing her by the shoulders, and I go, I will never do this again. I have learned my lesson. I don't care. This is not what I'm here to do. I'm not here to be a day trader. This is not what I'm good at. And if I ever invest money, it's money that we wouldn't even miss. And I'm going to put it in here, and I'm going to forget about it and see you in 5-10 years. And because I'm like, and if I don't have that capacity, you don't have to worry about it. I was like, I'm done with that. I'm done playing games. I'm going to go back to doing what I'm really good at, is helping people and figuring out how to keep helping people. And she was like, okay. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then I stuck to that. People are like, crypto's climbing. I'm like, don't care.
Same.
Not my problem. Not you invest in crypto. I know what I'm here to do. So it's kind of like, that's how fast they can change. But I beat myself up over that, But immediately I was like, wait, nope. That's only a couple of clients. So why don't I spend my time doing that instead of staring at a screen all day?
Yeah.
And then I did more of what I love, and then I made it back. And then it was like, okay, great. I didn't even try to get it back. I was like, whatever's left in there is left.
Yeah.
Maybe in 10 years, I'll be like, through the roof. Who cares? I don't care. It's gone to me.
I had a similar experience with that, in the sense that got in, wrote it up. It was great. Lost a lot of it. And to your point, the losing the money sucked. But what it really woke me up to, and you touched on, is I'm not meant to be fucking, even though I was a trader, I'm not meant to be in this market at the level that I'm playing. If I'm going to be in that market and think it's going to be, I'm going to make a living, I actually need to research. I need to do what the other guys who are actually making a living. I can't come in and cherry pick and think that it's going to work out. And it drew so much of my attention for a long period of time that I was just like, God, it doesn't, the money, again, when I look at that and I think about money is energy, and it's not exactly what we think it is and what we're told it is. And it's can I just play in it? Because even getting that just doesn't feel like the right type of energy either. It's not what I'm here to do, to your point, So anyway, I want to shift gears, because you and your family came from the Ukraine, and I think, everybody has a unique perspective on it. Sure. I think yours is probably a bit more informed than others. And, I have my thoughts on it, and I'm sure it's colored by the people that I trust in the media that are sharing this stuff, but I think just as an exercise, I'd love to get your thoughts on the best you can in your experience of And again, we've got limited information. We're not inside the meetings. We don't really, but like, what are your thoughts on all this?
My thoughts are from my observations from living in Ukraine back when I was little, hearing my parents recount of all the wars and what they had to go through, leaving and, leaving the Ukraine to come here as refugees, and the stuff that they had to go through when they were kids over there. It's sad what's happening to the people. And I think a lot of people in, more, I guess, America are in a more of a bubble. And anything outside of that bubble may be inflammatory, and it loses perspective a lot. For example, I was talking to my dad and I was like, how are they still farming over there? He's like, guys farming over here, they're fighting over there. He's like, what is the guy going to do? He has to farm. And so it's the people are the ones that suffer in all these situations. I'm sure could be true, could be not true. All I'm doing is repeating what I'm hearing because as I'm a person, and let's say the 100 billion that was sent out of a 300 billion, 100 billion was used. Where did that money go? You can start putting your own ideas together of where it got sent around places, but it didn't go to the people.
Yeah,
and then there's still sent equipment, and then so again you go back to there's clearly corruption happening. But also, that's pretty normal in terms of how things operate in a lot of countries. We are a lot more vocal here, and we can't be as vocal as we want because if some of the stuff that was happening here was happening over there. I think there was a woman in Ukraine that spoke out and said, dismissed the current president there. She was arrested. We can say whatever we want. We can get on any social media platform right now and criticize whatever we want as long as we don't make threats, right? And you can still go home to your kids. You can go ride your bike and no one's going to come to your door and be like, hey, you made an insult to the current, ruling class.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of corruption that's happening. The people are suffering. I think, I am only an observer seeing like what is happening with Russia inside. People are suffering, but there are some things that are happening. Like they got rid of GMOs, they got rid of pornography. And I think maybe Pornhub, stopped streaming over there during the war. So it's like, well, what a great thing you did for them. Like you got them a distraction. Like people are so addicted to porn here. And it's like, are you trying to hurt them or help them? Like, what are you trying to do? So they got rid of like glyphosates and GMO foods over there. And so people get healthier by not eating, genetically modified foods and processed foods. And, but they're still suffering over there. They're still going to war. And Russia's mindset is like, we'll send 1 million more. Like it's people to them. It's like very like, it's not how we have it here, like community. We love our people here. And there it's like, that's the Soviet way. That's the Russian way. It's like, if we need to throw 2 million people at it to get the job done. Cool. Oh, we got a peace deal. Great. 1 million are gone. Like, we're sorry. That's the price of war. And it's like, well, who got us into war? And there's so many things that are underlying it that I keep kind of like, stumbling upon, whether it be, like border securities. I'm sure you hear this parroted a lot. And like, I'm trying to be very mindful as to not repeat things that I hear, like examples like, well, what happens if China and Mexico get together and they put missiles on the border and you're like, we shut Cuba. And I'm like, wait a second. I've heard this like 4 different times. I don't know if this is a narrative, but I'm going to put a pause on that.
Yeah.
And so it's like these things cloud what it is. And ultimately the people there, like, do you see the thing that happened with when they were like Donald Trump bad, and then they had like 20 senators and repeating the same message on Instagram? Or
I heard about that. Yes,
same script, same everything, and they're like Russia, Ukraine propaganda. All their people are under propaganda, and then you're like, what is this?
And literally, there were like 22 last count I heard.
Yeah, it's like, what is this? This is propaganda.
Said all the same shit.
Yeah, no one's speaking from their mind. It's all scripted. And the news that we have here, have you seen this when they move the news?
Oh, yeah.
And every news channel from all the cities are saying the same thing. And you're like, how do you make this up? Like, this is clinical. Like, my parents taught me like what propaganda was.
Oh, sure.
You know? And so like, don't fall for this. And it's like, so in these kind of situations, I don't know what the right answer is. All I know is I always revert back to myself, my family, my community. Like when people were worried about the whole trans thing, people are like, they're coming for your kids. And it's like, take care of your kid.
Yes.
Like, that's all you can do. Let other people deal with it. Is this worth dying on a hill over? If the answer is yes, then go do it. If the answer is no, stick to your family, stick to your community, make sure, you know, you're present around, people know you're paying attention. And I always resort back to that. And I'm like, how do I keep my family unit good? Everyone's good. Then I go outside. Then I go, how are my friends doing? Everyone good? Good. How's my community doing? Everyone good? Good. And so as of recent, I've like pulled myself back into me, and my friends have been like, hey, you okay? Where have you been? You know?
Yeah. I was talking to Chase last night. He goes, I was telling him you were coming on today. He's like, I haven't seen him in a while.
Like,
I mean, we're about to get into why.
And, but so I'm always fluctuating between those states. You know, everyone wants to do all before they have before they have their I figured out. They don't know what they want. And that's where I kind of see like the social justice thing happening.
Yes.
Is like,
I like that.
Is like, it's too much all, but like a simple, like a thought experiment. Like gay for, like Palestinian rights.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I have no opinion on this. I'm only saying things that don't make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
And no one's made it make sense to me. And when you know that it's illegal to be gay in Palestine, so then it's like, well, if you go to Palestine, you go live there, you will be killed and you'll be jailed. Okay. And you go again, like, okay, well, the opposite is also terrible, you know, but then also you hear different perspectives, and you have to discern what's true. I've been to Israel,
mm-hmm.
and one siren went off back in the day, and I was like, oh, and then, you know, moved on. It was a really lovely place, you know, and it's easy to see a screen with missiles and then think it's happening everywhere.
Yes.
I had a client from Iraq, and he was like, you should come visit. And I made a joke. I was like, you know, they're going to put me on a no-fly list. You know, what is a Ukrainian going out to Iraq for? You know, from America. And he's like, why would you say that? And I was like, ooh. And I'm like, well, he's like, that's all movies. And he goes, this is my home. And I was like, holy cow. Like, Iraq is beautiful. Like, why are they not showing these parts? He's like, it's propaganda. It's like, they don't show you these parts because then you don't feel like, oh, they're good. No, they need help. We need to help them. We need to liberate. And it's like, these things are very interesting when you see them from a foreign perspective, but you don't fall for the very first thing that you see.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you know, countries are big. What's happening over here? What's happening over here? You know, Iraq recently, I think Kurdistan got attacked, and Kurdistan for the longest time was like everyone was welcome in Iraq. And it's like, that was a safe place. And I think they got attacked. That's maybe a year ago. And I was like, ooh, you Kurdistan now? You know, so, but at the same time, you have to like, okay, isolated, not isolated, you know, people still live there.
Yeah.
Why do people live there? And so this is the same way I look at Ukraine, I look at Israel, I look at Palestine, I look at you know, how they talk about Gaza. It's like, I can't do anything about that. What can I do? I can keep contributing to, you know, my family. I can keep contributing to, you know, the economy. I can keep contributing to better things being involved in the world. Because if you're kind of like crypto, if your mind is always there and it never turns off of that, not only did we not do anything productive, except look at a screen and panic whether crypto is going up and down, we also lost money, and no one got helped. Your family didn't get time with you. Your friends didn't get time with you. Your community didn't get time with you. Even if it's online, they didn't get time with you. I haven't even had time to do Instagram, like, let alone like figure out how to fix the problem with you. It's not my issue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, there's so much that is involved that we don't know about. And it's all so intertangled, and you can go through the conspiracies and you can go through the facts that they present you or the stories that they present you. And you have to kind of like put it together. And what you realize is, yeah, where did a bunch of money go? All I have is a bunch more questions. Like, where did all this money go? Like, why isn't it disclosed? Like, then how are we getting it back? And then, we want to get it back through a mineral deal. Wow. Oh, look at that. China had the only mineral deal with, they were like, China's the only place that has lithium, right? And then they found it in Africa. And then they found it in Ukraine all of a sudden. And now there's problem. And then you start piecing these things together, and then you go, oh, this is way bigger than like anything that I can wave a picket sign at. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love that perspective because, not surprisingly, it has nuance to it. And if I'm reading correctly, it's like, look, the leadership of Russia, the leadership of Ukraine, Putin and Zelensky, they both have blood on their hands. They're allowing this to happen. Obviously, Putin, the aggressor, and Zelensky seems to be profiting wildly from this war. And then, frankly, the previous administration, how they were setting up this whole mineral deal with BlackRock and Vanguard and State Street coming in and being able to rebuild Ukraine. So I think, the folks that have the Ukraine flag in their deal, I would argue you really could consider having a Russian one too. Because what about those Russian soldiers? You think they want to do that? Like, it's what they were, whether they were indoctrinated to do or it's their service and they have to do it. They're dying too. And they're doing it because of the way military leadership works is you obey orders. And there are so many people that frankly are just dying, and their lives, if they're not dying, their lives are being ruined. And it's all this, it feels very much like this big play to enrich a lot of people that frankly don't need any more money and to control the rights of a region, whether it's lithium or other minerals. It's just, again, people get so entrenched in a side. It's like both sides can be wrong and you can have love for both sides and for different reasons. And I just want to invite that to people to like, just allow for it all to be like that and to everybody to be wrong and everybody to be right. And, because us getting in pissing matches over, Ukraine, I had posted, a little clip from the Zelensky meeting with Trump and JD Vance. And I was like, finally U.S. leadership is taking this guy to task, and I used some comment like, so they're taking him over their knee, and some comment was like, oh, you give him spank me daddy. That's so, misogynistic or whatever. I go, that's your shit. I said, he was fucking coming in and he was getting punished. It had no sexual connotation whatsoever. But my point is, this guy is not I don't think rooting for this guy is maybe appropriate. Rooting for the Ukraine people, absolutely. But if you can't find fault with how this guy has handled this and seemingly does not want a ceasefire and was being, again, whether you like Trump or not, Trump's like, you haven't even fucking thank you. Where's the gratitude? Like, do you realize like you are completely fucked without us? Okay. We've sent you 300, like we've done all this and you're sitting here acting like kind of a prick. And people didn't like that. It wasn't very presidential. Have you been watching it all over the last 4 years presidential? I mean, the Kamala Harris, like you call her presidential? Like, holy shit, people have lost their minds because they're so entrenched against hating Trump. It's like, look, he ain't perfect. I believe he's doing some good things. There's some other shit I don't like. Same thing, I have a hard time finding things I liked about Biden. A lot harder time. That's on me. But there's nuance. And if you're just all in on one and all against the other, and I've been there, so I only speak from experience, it's nowhere to be. You're not going to get anything accomplished. You're not going to learn anything because you already know in your mind that this is good and this is bad and it's black and white, period.
You want to know what the thing that pushed me over the edge? We used to watch The Daily Show to kind of catch up on our information. It was when I think Trump was in office, and they said Trump told everyone to drink bleach. And I'm a health practitioner. So I'm like, what's happening? First of all. So Sarah is a deep investigator of things. So we pulled up the thing, we watched the whole thing. And then we're like, well, they didn't say that. And then, so he didn't say that. So then we started looking at other clips. Like, we should look at the full context, because we were annoyed. Because like Trump is, not nice. And he could be so much better if there was some kindness to what he talks about, how he delivers himself. And I get like, I get his personality. Like it's a part of all of us that we don't let out, because we're like, I don't need it right now, or there people are too afraid to do it, or people are like, whatever the case is. And we started looking at all this stuff, and I was like, wow, there's a lot of context missing. And in that same clip, remember when they were making fun of, Zelensky was disrespectful to the people, talking about the suit. Why don't you wear a suit? Well, they also cut the feed off at like, maybe I'll get a better suit. And then after that, he said, or I'll get a worse suit. And his tone has its own interpretation, because Americans don't have the ear for Russian tone and Ukrainian tone. Mm-hmm. And like, you're like, oh, you're always even keel. And one of my things that I noticed is like Russians, Ukrainians, Europeans, like we don't fake emote to kind of like make you feel better. If you say a joke and it sucks, I'll be sitting here like this, Yeah. And then you're like, that cues to you, that wasn't that funny. And it has nothing to do with you being a good person or a bad person. It was like, matter of fact, that wasn't funny. It's not that what you said wasn't funny that offended me. It wasn't funny. So like, be funnier next time. It's like, that's kind of, it's like, but if I laugh, I laughed. I don't fake laugh.
Yeah.
And so, that's kind of like, he's trying to make a joke, and it's misinterpreted out of context and taken directly, which I'm not standing up for him one way or another. I'm only filling in context, because context is really important.
Yes,
and nuance is really important.
Yeah.
And the way someone speaks from a different country, like Nigerians have also a very strong, direct, in your face, tone, but no one's mad at them, or misinterpreting them. But what I'm saying is, once you learn that, you don't take it personally. And then I think like people from Denmark are also like you look fat and out of shape.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, that was rude. You go, and you're like, I meant that with love. That's not, I'm not trying to be rude. Like, are you okay? Do you not have money to take care of yourself? It's like, it's so different how culture is
different.
Yeah. And so that's why it makes it even more blown out of proportion, or makes it exaggerated in so many different ways and fashions. And it's like, if you're not privy to that, and the average person, I would say in this country, is not, even me telling you, like, I've heard this several times, I don't want it to be a narrative or something like that, or something that I use to make a point. It's like, I'm prefacing, so that way people are aware that I'm aware that this could be a narrative, but this is how I see the world, and making sure that is a good example, but I also don't want that to be the only example. And like we were talking about before, and in no religious context am I talking about it, but a few people commit these sins, and the rest of the people pay for it. And that sucks. And what you're talking about between like, Zelensky's wrong, Putin's wrong, he's right. In relationship counseling, they teach you, it's not you against you, not one against the other. It's you two on the same side against the problem. The problem is the side. You two are actually on the same side, but a lot of people sit across the table from each other and not on the same side of the table. And the problem's how are we going to address this problem? Because that's something that Sarah and I do. We're like, it sounds like we have a communication problem. So then we'll go over and be like, okay, there's a problem over here. How do we fix that? And we're like literally in a business meeting trying to like not get our emotions tangled up because we have a problem. So, but we've been in business together for 10 years. So it's like we can switch between hats very well. So then we're like, oh, well, I'm noticing, I'm not hearing any needs from this problem. And then I'm like, okay, well, if needs were stated, do you think that would make you feel more connected to the conversation? And it's like, sometimes it's that silly.
Yeah.
Like we're role playing with each other about how to fix this problem instead of like continuously shouting at each other until it gets so bad that we have to walk away and get grounded from each other. Mm-hmm. And so that's also what I notice in these conversations. It's like the US pays attention to its people, but it also has its own interest in certain things. And how do we recover this debt back? And then you go, well, these people, there's only like 25, 40 million Ukrainians in Ukraine, something like that, against 150 million. You're like, how do we fix that?
Yeah.
How do we fix this from, being a bully issue? And then you go, well, and I listen to guys speak Russian, so I can hear contextually what they're talking about, in the tone that they're talking about, in all of these things. And so it's hard for me to I'm not going to go then online and be like, well, this is actually, I don't have time for that because I'm focusing on my family. I'm focusing on me. I'm focusing on, what do I do? Because this, especially as a trader, commodities fluctuate. Mm-hmm. What people put money into commodities, you get more of. Mm-hmm. So if I put my money into something, so that's why I don't wave a sign. I go, you know what? They're my values. These are a company following my values. I'll pay a little bit more to get this product because that means that person can do more of what they're doing. And I get more of that in the world. And was it Woody Harrelson that did a documentary about that a long time ago? I saw that documentary, changed the way I think about these things. I cannot remember it.
Definitely sounds like on brand for Woody.
Yeah. And he's like, whatever you put money into, you don't have to fight anybody. Put your money where you want, what you want to see grow, and you will get more of that. And so I spend my money on organic food. I spend my money on cotton. I don't spend my money on polyester clothing. I spend my money on things that make my feet more spread out, not closed in. I spend my money what I want to see grow. And if everyone did that, the whole game can change overnight.
Yes.
You could starve out a lot of things overnight by reducing the cash flow. Like they did it to Kanye, right?
Yes.
They starved him out. Boom. We don't like what you said. Boom. You're done.
Yeah.
And we're going to starve you out as a metaphor, as a joke. I'm saying that. But you could literally be like, you know what? We need less of that in the world. Everyone, let's not spend our money there. And I'm not going to say any brands because I don't want to get in trouble for anything. But
well, I think that's a perfect segue to what we need more of in the world. For people just listening to the podcast and don't have video, I am eating a beef stick that has 25% beef liver and 5% beef heart that I will put up against any stick I've ever had in my life. I fucking will mark my reputation on it right now. And I think I've done a decent job on my reputation. I don't, support many brands. It's the only shit I believe in. This, I don't even know how to describe it. I was trying to when I had one earlier today. But it is phenomenal. The barely feel any casing around it, which has always been a little bit problematic with me for some of the meat sticks. It's a little, pardon the description, it's a little girthier than some of the other sticks. In it, it's like it's full. It doesn't feel like dehydrated as much. And I don't know if that's something I'm just imagining. And I've had plenty of beef products that have had heart and liver in it. And it's still tough for me to get down. I can mix it in a meat sauce or whatever with some other stuff that's like, just the beef, just to trying to drown it out. Still, it doesn't go down well. This, I can taste just a hint of it where it's like, okay, I know I'm getting that good stuff, but I could eat these all day long. They're incredible. So talk to us. What do we got here? What am I eating?
2 years in the making. And I want to give Luke Story credit because probably if he didn't mention anything, I never would have done it.
Tell us more about that.
That's kind of the catalyst behind all this. So I've been a health practitioner. We talked about it for almost like 16 plus years. And I always put my money into organic food. I go for farmers, and even farmers that are doing good work, making sure they're grass fed, grass finished in the pasture. So I've been doing that for a long time, and I've kind of settled with, whatever was out there. And I'm like, all right, grass fed, grass finished, got some things going on. But then you start looking at ingredients, and then I'm like, this is before I met Luke Story would tell me about this, and I'm always like, man, why is this has no preservatives in it? But it's not grass finished, or it's not pasture raised, or it's grass fed, grass finished, but then it has like lactic acid and citric acid, or some other preservatives and flavors, or MSG. I saw another company that was like our 150-year-old recipe from our, grandmothers and grandfathers. And I'm always doing this. Ingredients, I'm like, first of all, hard to find. Here they are. And then I'm like, MSG. I'm like, well, MSG was invented in 1909. And so I didn't know 1909 was 150 years ago. So I'm like, what is happening? Is no one creating oversight on all of these things? And turns out there's a lot of different fun rules. So I started eating raw meat and raw liver. And because I am terrible at keeping on task with certain things and I get busy, that the meat started getting bad. So then I started dehydrating it. And so then Luke's Story comes in and his blood sugar happens to be off. So he's like, do you have anything that I can, and I don't have sugar in my gym. So I'm like, I don't know. I don't even have sugar in here. So I'm like, how about some liver? Or how about, try this? And he was like, is this liver? And I go, yeah. And this whole started with, you should make a product out of this. And I'm like, sat with it for like 6 months. And then my business partner, Ricard, who family endeavors are with Eleiko. So his family owns Eleiko, the weightlifting company. Nicest man I know. And he comes in one day and goes, hey, I would like to make a protein bar. How do we go about this? And I say, is this something that I'd eat? He goes, yeah, if you won't eat it, then I won't even want to make it. So I sat with it for another 3 months. And then one day he came in, we were chatting, and I was like, what, try this. So I gave him some liver, and he was like, if we can make it this would taste better, this would be amazing. And so then we're like, all right. And so I've been a C.H.E.K practitioner for 15 years, 14, no, they've been going on 15 years now. Oh yeah, 15 years. Wow. I know the values are on certain things. It has to be grass fed, has to be grass finished, has to be pasture raised, because one without the other, if it's not pasture raised and it's grass fed, grass finished, you could still feedlot cows with grass, alfalfa sprouts, but they're not outside. And then you can, and the biggest misconception that people have is thinking cows are, grass fed means it's good. All cows are grass fed. Every single cow, 70% of its life or more, is grass fed. Then the rest of its life, they finish it with something. And it could be all sorts of different combinations of things. And so grass fed is like a standard term for, finished with wheat or finished with barley or what corn, or depending on how conventional you get, it gets even more interesting than that. So that's why on the stick, I made sure it was, first of all, when you go through the USDA process, whatever is on your label has to be inside the box or has to be inside the product. I cannot get grass-fed meat if it's not pasture raised, which is the 60 days or pastured inside less than 60 days is considered pasture raised. If it's inside more than 60 days, it's now grass-fed, grass-finished. It's a feedlot grass-fed animal now, even though it could be 61 days, they're done, grass-fed. So I put myself in a corner to make sure I can't, in times of desperation, which I won't do because that's not who I am ethically. But I know, I see it in companies where it's like you leave yourself an out to then go like, well, it's still grass-fed, grass-finished, and put that in there. And so for my values, I'm like, so I could sleep at night. We used whole liver, whole heart, and not desiccated. It is the whole organ gets thrown into the mixture, and which allows the enzymes and the peptides to stay active and together, and the chains to stay together without them being broken apart. And so this is kind of like my love for my kids and the world, because I kept looking, like I was telling you, like one of my favorite things to do is to go look at, I talk about jerky so much that it's always in my feed now. So I'm like, what's the shop? Ingredients? What are your claims? And then it's like, and I try to find where there's inconsistencies, because I go on my site and try to find inconsistencies. And so these are inarguable things that I will never stray away from. And so I put it on the label, because everything, that little USDA bug means everything is tracked, from the farmer legally with the affidavits to the manufacturer legally saying that they used what they said and here's the ingredients that went in there. Everything has to have an affidavit, which has a paper check to whoever provided that ingredient legally is bound to providing whatever they say it is. And then to how they package it and then ship it. And we cook it under 160 degrees, which keeps the enzymatic activity live in there. So we have to cook it longer, which our manufacturers are not happy with because they can't churn as much out. So yeah, it's not fun, but for me, that's a value that I have, is I'd rather keep the nutrition live and the enzymes live instead of kind of pushing it through and getting as many as we can out. And yeah, we came up with BERSKI. And that's how BERSKI came to life.
Which is
Ricard Blomberg, which is my business partner, BER with the G, and Rybchinskiy, SKIY. And we dropped the last letters of each of our name and we got BERSKI.
Yeah.
Because we ran into a trademark issue. And so this whole thing has been absolutely insane. Like one hurdle after another, we make progress and then someone comes out with some kind of hammer. Like we got a cease and desist because the name that we were using before, there's another company already doing it. And then we found out about trademark laws is it's first to use in the United States. So whoever's using it first in the market, you could be 10 years in the market and someone comes out and uses that and you're like, no, I've been using it. Well, why don't you file? It's a longer process for them to get. So then we had to rebrand our whole thing. And we came out with BERSKI, which is better than the first one that we had. And like I was telling you, the challenges, we had 1,200 pounds of meat fall on the floor, unusable, getting that reimbursed. And it's like, now it takes a little longer to get the product back. And it's like, well, we have half of the supplies. Now it takes time to get these all together. And then, they ship you the wrong pouches. And then you're like, great, that's another month. And it's like, so there's so much, I've learned so much of the nitty gritty details of consumer processed goods. And I do have a lot of appreciation for how these people are like churning these things in perfect succession, but everything inside of the product, I'm always skeptical of. And so that's why we put all the claims right on the bag and slap that USDA bug on there through our manufacturer, because we are bound and everyone that we work with are bound. So as I give you that stick, I had no control over the meat that went in there. I had no control over how it was made. But through USDA inspection, everything, the paper trail goes back to the meat that I said is in here has to be in here. The salt that I say was in here has to be in here. The manufacturing process, you made it. Yep, you made it to the standards. Everything is logged and recorded. Cool. Everything's up to code. Great. Fantastic. Shipped it over. We're all good. And when that bug is missing, there is no oversight. So you better trust the person that you're buying this from.
Tell me this. What are some of the kind of changes that your formula has, your ingredients, or really what you don't have that these other meat sticks traditionally have in it? And how much more challenging did it make it to kind of come out with the final product?
I'm kind of stuck on the last thing I said. I didn't mean it to be like a threat to people who don't use USDA bugs. It's I noticed there's a lot of shady companies out there, and there's people that are doing really good stuff that don't want to go through the USDA route. It's perfectly legal, but again, I hope like you have to know and trust that you're getting it from somewhere.
And so I would read that more of like you can really trust because everyone along the supply chain is bound, and if they don't adhere, the penalties are severe, I'm guessing.
That's why a lot of people in the stores, when they're in stores with the USDA bug, that's why they don't put pasture raised on it.
Okay.
That's why they put grass fed, but not grass finished. So it's like, what is it finished with? And then you can start piecing these things together, going, if it's on the label, it has to be in there. So if it's not on the label, what's in there? And that's why I'm like, it took longer to get this approved. But to go back to your question, is a lot of people use citric acid, lactic acid to increase the amount of yield they have, which means they lose less product, lose less water. It could be juicier. They do it for many reasons. But it acidifies the product. So if anyone's ever tasting that like tang when they bite into one, they're like, "Ooh, it's a little citrusy." It's like kind of like tangy.
Oh, okay.
And that's what they're getting out of that, from that citric acidy taste and that acidy taste in general.
Where do those products derive from?
So there's like 3 companies, big companies that make them. They sell them in barrels and whatever. Citric acid is naturally in citrus fruits, right? 80% of citric acid is used for the food industry. None of it comes from citrus fruit, because that's not how it's used in the meat industry. Because if you put regular citric acid and you mix it in, because you have to mix it in, and if you put it in right away, it acidifies the meat and the meat comes out raw. It's acidic, but it's now, the more it sits in there in the heat, the more acidic it gets, and then it's going to be raw. So it has to be encapsulated. So every time you see encapsulated citric acid, no matter how good the product is, it's encapsulated with vegetable oil. And because vegetable oil disintegrates or melts at about 130 to 150 degrees, 155 degrees. So as the internal temperatures get to that temp, it releases the citric acid. Boom, the acidification process occurs. Then they can pull the meat. The meat stays juicy. They lose less water. They have more yield. But and it kills. It's a lethal kill for bacteria, which is why they use it. But it's in the food industry. It's derived from a black mold derivative.
Oh, that's got to be good for you.
Yeah. So even though they say it's dead, it's inert, whatever it is, anytime it interacts with your body still treats it as if it's alive, and you have reactions with it. And then the other one that they use a lot of the times is lactic acid. And so you could take rice, the same lactic acid you produce in your muscles. You take rice, put it in water. You take the rice out, you leave the water with a cloth on your windowsill for like 3 weeks. You'll see this foam come up. That's the lactic acid, but you can't use that in the meat production. So you have to mix it in. And then once again, that natural, I looked into it. I'm like, well, can't we ferment rice and scoop it? They're like, no, that's not how these work. So the industry that supplies that the strain of lactic acid that mostly supplies the food industry comes from a Streptococcus thermus, which is the same bacterial strain as, what you get in strep throat. Mm-hmm. And again, even though it's inert, even though they say it's dead, your body still attacks it like it's alive. And these are those things where I'm trying to make a product that decreases the amount of inflammation you have and increases the amount of nutrition your body can absorb without gut inflammations. And so because it's so prevalent and no one really goes to the great lengths to take it out, it's kind of like a standard.
Okay.
And I don't want to do that. So
what's your workaround if you're not going to use those 2 ingredients?
So we used celery juice instead, which is celery and salt. It has higher in nitrates, celery in general. So people still drinking their celery juice, they're consuming salt clusters that naturally are higher in nitrates, but you still drink them to detox. So they still have their benefits, and they have benefits because they come in clusters. So like your sea salt, why is it good to have a lot of salt, sea salt, but not iodized salt? And so you've stripped the clusters or the chains of salts and mixtures that they have together, and you've isolated one, and your body doesn't know what to do with an isolated thing. Like magnesium has 100 different strains. It's called elemental magnesium. But then people go and they take, threonate and glycinate, and they isolate certain things from this elemental magnesium, where there's like 108 different strains and clusters and chains of magnesium. And so with celery, I've noticed that at least it's combined with other salts that you get from celery in high concentrations, which still has that effect to stabilize the meat. Even though it's perfectly stable, which is why we're doing this for now. And we're going to run food shelf testing and see if we can pull it out. If there's no difference, then it's like, it's coming out. But as of right now, I'm noticing no, we have a good source of celery, and all it is celery juice goes in. And that's the only other additive besides sea salt that we have.
Damn.
Yeah. And like, for example, in April, we're going to be releasing our salt and pepper. And that's the same thing on the back, except pepper. Now you add pepper. And that's literally the exact same thing. So
Dude, it's been 2 years in the making. Like, when you first started it, how long did you think it was going to take?
like maybe like 5-6 months.
Yeah.
I thought it would be like out in 5-6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And around month 1, maybe 2, I was like, it's going to be out in 3 months.
Yeah.
And then the first person we had, we were doing other stuff while we were trying to, this person, we tried to manufacture with, strung us along for like 3 months. And funny enough, I do tarot. And so I plan my year in tarot. So I'm like, oh, let's see what every month has. So then they were stringing me along, stringing us along. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to pull a tarot card. And because we were like, well, this is the only person we know that could do this for us. And they will do all these things for us. And so it felt so good to, and we dragged our feet for like 2.5 months of like no progress, 3 months of no progress. And so the first card I pulled is a death card, which is in a sense freedom. In a sense, you're starting over. It means so many different things. But in relationship to the question that I asked, that is the death of that relationship. Nothing more, nothing less. I need to move on. And so from that moment on, all of a sudden, everything started looking better again. Like, we're like, you know what? No, we're not hanging around anymore. Boom, who's next? And then we kept calling people on the phone, who has meat, negotiating meat prices. And one of the biggest things is we have to pay more for meat because I know what happens to the farming industry. And if they cut too little, they can't get paid. And if they can't get paid, they can't make more livestock. And if they can't get more livestock, they don't have a farm. And if they don't have a farm, someone's going to come buy that land and do whatever the heck they want with it. So I put my money in grass-fed, grass-finished, pasture-raised, regenerative, even though the USDA does not like regenerative being said on their packages, which is why it's not on the package. We're working on it.
Yeah.
But I wanted to get something out right now. But I want them to keep farming. And so if I'm putting my money into buying whatever their fair value is, that means they can not only they're not going to be treated like peasants. They can actually make money, which is good. And we can take their product and their well-raised animal and feed people with it on the go because it's a fast-moving life.
Yes.
And so back to what we were talking about, like I'm putting my money where I want what I want to grow. I want this USD manufacturer to grow. I want my farms that I partner with to grow.
Yeah.
And because if that becomes the norm, I hope this becomes the norm where it won't be harder to get, then we can scale this. Then, because on a 2,000 pound animal, there's a 25 pound liver, it's like, and 25% of the stick is liver,
Wow.
And on a 2,000 pound animal, there's like a 10 pound heart, maybe 5 to 10 pound heart. And to put more heart in there, we got to get more animals. But if there's no good animals, like there's only so far it can grow. Luckily, the more we put in, the more we can. But there is a limit, unlike some of these big producers where I know how much they're ordering every month, and it's a staggering amount. It's a staggering amount of meat that is being imported and moved to make everything the way it is. There's respect to that. That's a lot of moving parts in that industry because you're not dealing with like chemical juices and waters. You're dealing with living things.
Yeah.
That aren't being respected. But the nature of like the trading floor, it has its own like, whoa, this is impressive how this operates. This people, I don't know how people understand what they're doing in this chaos,
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, this has been a thing that I want to see my kids eat it. I found out kids love this more than adults do.
I'm excited for my kids to eat it.
And again, I didn't like my daughter was taking like different types of pepperonis that were like organic from the store, and I was like, I don't like it.
Yeah.
So now she brings BERSKI to school every day, and all the kids are like, "What's that?" And now my 16-year-old brings BERSKI to school, and all her friends are like, "What's that?" And then my oldest is at UT, and then she's like has all this stuff, and people are like, "What's that?" And it's one choice leads to another person's curiosity to mimic that choice or to go, why did you make that choice? And you start finding out why you made that choice. And there's a lot more intent behind this really awesome packaging that our director of marketing came up with, and she's also our designer. She also fixes our website. I mean, we have a small team of like powerhouses that are good at what they do and are moving mountains around while we're trying to get everything moving too. And it's cool.
Yeah, the packaging I told you downstairs, like it's perfect. It is so clean, and I love the name BERSKI's nice and bold. There's no extra shit on there. There's no whatever. It's just the way I know you. It's very you, and I know Ricardo a little bit too from back in the National Pro Grid days, and it seems very aligned with him as well. Where are these going to be available? On the website? It'll be BERSKI.com.
EatBERSKI.com.
EatBERSKI.com. Mm-hmm. When are they available yet?
They're available now. We have
they are
right now.
Okay.
So you could buy them if we sell out. We have you'll have to wait until April to get the full batch, but we do have some here. I have a truck coming to my house either today or tomorrow. I don't even know. Maybe it's here now. That's delivering like 2,000 some sticks of each. So we have plenty to go through, and we have another batch coming in mid-March. And then our big, humongous batch is coming in. Our first official real batch is coming in April.
Dude, you were generous enough to gift me a bunch that I'm going to be able to share with each of my guests in their Unlearn Optimization kit. So stoked to add that. What are you most excited about with this?
We were talking about cold plunges earlier, and that feeling when you get in the cold plunge. And I haven't done a cold plunge in a long time.
Same.
And I was sitting here. It was actually yesterday, and I was looking at it after the storm, and the wind blew the cap off. And I was like thinking about it, man, the wind blew the cap off my cold plunge. And I was like, it literally has not stopped feeling like I've been in a cold plunge. It has been breathe and move. Breathe, be clear and keep moving. Breathe. There's so much pressure. It is uncomfortable because there's so many details I have to pay attention to. And I am very like Johnny Appleseed. Like I'd much rather be, frolicking through the yard, figuring out what needs attention, versus my wife is very like mission oriented, like a special ops when it comes to like what she needs to get done. She's like, we got this turn here. And she's fantastic with it. But the fact that I had to completely redesign how my mind needed to see it's holding on to a lot. So what I'm really excited for is actually seeing people, and I've been testing this and like giving this to people all the time. And it feels really good hearing the feedback that they really enjoy it. And because I'm Russian or Ukrainian, I always tell them, you're not going to hurt my feelings. And they're like, I would tell you. And I'm like, that's all I care about.
Yeah.
And almost time and time again, they're like, this is amazing. This tastes clean and it settles in my stomach really well. And certain feedbacks like, man, this stick is enormous. And I was like, oh yeah, that's why we made the 1 ounce. So I fought for that 1 ounce because my kids would I'd see half a stick laying around and I'm like, do you know how expensive this meat is? Like, please eat this. Don't waste it, So then I'm like, I made the 1 ounce. Now everyone can eat the 1 ounce and it's a little thinner. And you were talking about girth the 1.9 ounce is actually even like 2 sizes bigger of a casing.
Okay.
So there's even more punch in that one. But that's what I'm really excited for. I'm excited for, seeing how it helps people in their life and how it makes them choose certain things differently. Because there's always the excuse of like, I don't know what's good. But once you put it in your body and you wait a couple hours and you're like, I do have more energy. Liver has packed with B vitamins. It's packed with iron, and it's iron that is absorbed. It's already bound to heme. And so, which means your body absorbs it better, like hemoglobin. So heme has to bind to globulins. And so heme is bound to iron, which means it merges in through your blood a lot more efficiently, which is why anemics do really well eating liver, is because that iron is bound to their blood already. So it absorbs more efficiently than scraping your cast iron pan and eating it. Because it's not bound yet. And so that's already, there's folate. Yeah, I think folic acid is synthetic. Well, I got to check my package. I'm pretty sure it's folate. Folate is the natural derivative. It's folate. If you ever see folic acid, that is a synthetically made compound.
Oh,
yeah. So if it's labeled folate, it's natural. Folic acid means it's been changed and made. So women who are pregnant, I'm really excited to have. We have a lot of friends who are.
I remember Peyton being on folate when she was pregnant.
Yep. And a lot, my dad was eating this. My dad's had a fatty liver his whole life. So I gave him 2 months of liver to eat, not the sticks, but I gave him, I'm kind of just pushing a little bit further in the future of what, kind of dancing around that topic, but I gave him liver to eat. 2 months later, went to get his blood work done. His liver is almost normal.
Wow.
Yeah. And this is, again, a Ukrainian person who does not care about fantasy, is like objective and is like, yeah, this happened and this happened. I guess it works. That's really cool. And it's like, now his liver's better. And so I've noticed like people, like hair gets improved, skin gets improved, your energy gets improved. Copper improves your metabolism and helps you improve your electroconductivity, since we're all electric human beings. And why do we get grounded? Because we're too charged. And so, we're too positively charged. You go and you get negatively charged. And it's such a complete thing. And I try to keep it as whole as possible. And I'm really excited to see people enjoy it. Because I know I've been eating like this ever since I met Paul Check. Paul Check reamed me out in class one day, and then I never went back.
Yeah.
And so I know the benefits. And like we were talking about earlier, if you start fixing your body and your gut and you start making different choices, and instead of something that gives you, fake energy, this gives you real vitamins, it's minerals, protein, no carbs in there, maybe one from the liver. But you're going to notice, even without it, you're going to notice that you're mentally a little bit sharper. And then it allows you to take that next step and the next step and the next step. And that's ultimately what I'm really excited for, is seeing how people benefit from it. And yeah, my kids love it because take it over to school every day. It's like that. These are the things that I do it for, because it's exhausting to cross all the I's and cross all the I's. Dot all the I's. See what I mean?
Cross the I's and dot the T's. Yeah. That's a thing to do too.
And but that's what I'm really most looking forward to, is like, I have not found a product that combined all of my grievances with everything on the market and actually put it into a product that can be scaled and in everyone's home. And then we have a lot more planned. We call it our parking garage. Our parking garage is enormous.
Yeah. And
so it'll lead to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I'm excited to see certain things go out, like our products go out into the world, because there are going to be no compromises. If I can't find a compromise, I won't do it, because I can't sleep if I'm doing something for the world that is not something that I do for myself.
I love that. And dude, I'm so stoked to be along this ride with you. And like I said, I fully endorse this stick. It is incredible. I'm excited for the other products you're going to come out with. Like, what a great feat. And again, like going into it, like we all do, into things that we don't really know, a little naive, and but you stayed with it in faced with obstacle after obstacle. And it shows in the finished product. It's like fucking outstanding. I'm really excited, and again, excited to share it with my family too. I know they will love it. So thank you for doing all the work. Thanks for being here. Fuck, it's been a long time. It's great to see you again. Yeah. It's really good to see you, man. Where can people find you?
EatBERSKI.com. You can follow me on health.performance.engineer. Once I get this all up and running, I'll be doing more Instagram stuff. I don't even have time to do that, but you can still message me. I respond. I'm a human. Comment on something. I check, make sure if people are asking questions, because it's my free thing to the world. I want to make sure people can still learn, and I'm doing my best to educate people for free with some of the nuanced things. They can also go to primalfusionhealth.com and see what we do on the professional, on the coaching side. That's it.
Awesome. Hell yeah. Awesome episode. Thanks for being here, brother.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.